Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new review. And today, this morning, whatever time this is going up, I am going to be reviewing Monkey Man, which is out in cinemas this Friday the 5th of April. A film that people might not have ever heard of until they've seen the thumbnail, a film people know nothing about. They might have read stories about it perhaps, with some behind the scenes stuff. But it is written, directed, starring Dev Patel, his directorial debut. There are a few other people with writing credits on the film, but he's devised the story as well. And I guess I can say it is an action thriller revenge film. I'm going to say revenge film, and I'm not going to say much more than that with regards to story. And the reason why this feels weird doing this review, I have just been to an early screening of it. Cineworld in the UK have done the unlimited screenings, and it's a film I heard a little bit about. I hadn't seen a trailer. I went in completely blind. I really like Dev Patel as an actor. I think he's obviously been linked in the past to the vacant Bond role, but to see him, I think, incredibly young age, going to directing already for an action film, seeing the reaction, I think, at South by Southwest for this, I've been very curious about this film. And as I mentioned, I went in blind to this. I hadn't seen a trailer. I didn't know anything about the story. The only imagery I have is the poster, which really does not give away much. So that is my background to this film. Before I take it a little bit further, I do want to, of course, let you guys know this review's come out of nowhere. You might be thinking, what on earth is it? What is it? Social media. Follow us on there. We announce reviews, videos, all that sort of stuff. Just get out of the way. Linktree.com/cinemasavvy. Links to our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. If obviously you subscribe to us on YouTube, thank you very much. But I do want to hear from people. Do comment if you've seen the film. If you're looking forward to seeing the film, I'm keeping this spoiler free. But this is one that I think is going to be a film people speak of for years to come. I don't say that too often, unless I do. But it's really weird. I'm recording this very late, like midnight here in the UK. The screening was late today. I've just got home. I wanted to record it tomorrow, but I thought I want to get my initial thoughts out there because I have seen an action film that I am comparing in my head to The Raid and the John Wick. I'm going the first of each of those because they both became franchises within their own right. But I look at those as the benchmark of the original action films of the last sort of 10, 15 years. I'm sure I'm missing something really obvious. Keyword original, so don't say Fury Road because it's not original. But I couldn't get this image out of my head. And I know that everything gets compared to John Wick these days. Everything gets compared to something like you had The Guest and people were comparing it to things such as that. I know The Guest came out way before, but the John Wick of action films has been a phrase thrown around so much. So I feel a bit weird referencing that, if I'm being honest. And I think it does this film a disservice. But when you have the action films that people are going to, that are living long in the memory, to me the comparisons do go to that first John Wick film. A film that came out and it did fine. People saw it, but it didn't become the John Wick until word of mouth became a thing. People were talking about the film. They were recommending it to other people. The Keanu Reeves renaissance that came from it. There's a lot of comparisons I'm going to make to Monkey Man in this. And this isn't going to be a big release to cinemas. This is going to benefit from word of mouth. And this is me doing this review, getting this out there, because I think it's a film that when people see it, they're going to love it. I absolutely adore it. I think it's absolutely sensational. And I'm not just chucking buzzwords around for the sake of chucking buzzwords around. With respect to action films, it gives us something I don't feel like we've had in the past. Even though the Raid obviously shot, I think in Singapore such as this, but this is set in India. It's a revenge story, as I said. Don't worry, it's not like John Wick in the sense of a man and his dog. Very much a family-connected story, and that's all I'm saying on the story. You can probably picture the rest, but I really have to talk about Dev Patel because the film sort of starts and ends with him. It's his story. He's the lead character. He is the Monkey Man, I guess you could say, off the poster. And the less you know about this film heading in, the better. I just have to give him full credit, all the credit, for his approach to direction, his performance, and the story. How he's doing some of this action. And action's a really frustrating thing to talk about because it's something that, again, with the John Wick boom, we're talking more about action choreography of the Raid. The beauty of the Raid is not only the martial arts that Gareth Evans did in that film. I forgot the name of it. It's like Cinque Pellet or something similar. Apologies on the pronunciation. But he was able to shoot action in a way which we could follow it, we could trace it, we could see what was in the frame, what was being shot. Unlike the Takens of the of the mid to late noughties, where it's the quick cut, quick cut, quick cut, quick cut, and they're not aging as well anymore. And then John Wick came along, and you've got incredible stunt work, incredible choreography. And Monkey Man sort of falls into this blend to me, where the beauty of shooting action is being able to watch it, being able to follow it, getting the right level of emotion and intensity within action set pieces, I think is a very underrated thing, and this film does it so well. It's never doing too much, it's never overboard, there's never too much action. It almost builds up to it like a lovely crescendo in a song, and then you'll get like an insane sequence. At one point, it reminded me of Good Time, the Safdie Brothers film. For those that aren't familiar with that, a great Rob Pattinson film, and it reminded me of that at moments, and it was a really unique film seeing this. And I mentioned I didn't know anything going. I don't know what the trailer shows. I don't know if the story's in the trailer, if the background politics. This is set in India during election time at Diwali. So there's a lot of background politics happening at the same time as this. So if you're curious about that, don't take my word for it being obviously realistic. I wouldn't know, but it delves into the corruptions of governments, of police, of armies. A very typical action stuff we've seen before, but definitely inspired by some real life events happening at the moment or of the last couple of years. I do want to chuck that in there. So I obviously can't deviate into the politics of that, but I've seen stuff online before, the farmers and loads of other things that have happened. But going back to Monkey Man, and it's really tricky doing this review because it feels short. I really struggle sometimes saying maybe it's the sign of a crap review or the fact I'm recording too late, but from an action set piece, if you're going to want to watch an action film, this is generational in the standpoint of people will talk about it. You will remember it. There are sequences, gnarly sequences that are not going to forget your eyes. I mentioned how it's shot, how it is done in a way that action should follow to be. That doesn't even make any sense at this point in time. I'm waffling. I don't know what to do. But I need to deviate away from this, but I don't want to tell about the story. I can't talk about the story. The less you know, the better this film is. I want to talk behind the scenes. I mentioned I've seen something online. So, you might be wondering, where's the trailers at? Where's the marketing been? This release is in 5 days. There's been almost no marketing for the film. Now, this was previously going to go direct to Netflix, and then immediately that realises that's where the marketing was, because it was going to Netflix. There is no marketing. It would have just dropped online. No one would have watched it. It would have been forgotten about and lost in the abyss of their catalogue as time goes by. A certain producer, you may have heard of him, Jordan Peele, decided after watching the film that he'd use his production company, Monkey Paw Productions, to essentially, I don't know the full ins and outs, but they basically bought the distribution rights as part of his deal with Universal, which he distributes his films to, and they sort of took over it from Netflix and are now getting it in a theatrical distribution. And this is kind of why I think it's really important for me to talk about. I talk about the cinema experience so much. To see an action film like this on the big screen is fantastic. There was a decent turnout. It's an early screening. It's a member screening. I don't expect it to be a big film, but to be able to see this properly at the big screen at the cinema, I know people don't like audiences. I know there's this whole divisive streaming versus theatrical, but you should have the opportunity to watch this at a cinema. And for the maturity of the direction in his first directed film, I'm thinking of action films. I'm seeing trailers for action films coming out later on, a month from now. A David Leitch film, the Fall Guy, the Ryan Gosling, which is meant to be great, by the way. But Dev Patel's direction in this, okay, I can't compare it to a trailer, but you look at some Hollywood films, that's 5-10 years. And I'm sat there saying an actor turned director has just made one of the best action films the last 10 years. And you can look at this trend now of more stunts people heading into directing. John Wick, of course, has led that. I think David Leitch, I mentioned, was involved in the first John Wick. I could be wrong. But we're seeing this more now where some of the stunts people are becoming directors. Now, Dev Patel is no stuntsman. But to see an actor take on a directing role and do such an incredible job behind the lens whilst being in the lead role, whilst it being an incredibly action-heavy role, is just quite remarkable, and I cannot praise him enough for that. I'm understating it, and I know unfortunately one side effect that's going to come from this film. When people see this, they'll be starting the usual, Dev Patel should be Bond, Dev Patel should be Bond, and then we're going to get The Sun or some other shite newspaper saying, guess what folks, our sources say that this is the new Bond. It's the actor that's just got a film coming out this week. So brace yourself for the Dev Patel Bond stories in the next few weeks. My personal opinion, I think he'd make a great Bond. Do I think he would be cast as Bond? No. I actually think now I've seen him directing, I kind of want to see him do some more directing and not get attached to Bond in a really weird way. But nonetheless, I don't think that would happen. It'd be a very interesting choice as Bond, but I'm not doing a Bond video, that's for another time. But it's one of those things, right, people will call it his audition to play a Bond, like the guest I mentioned already with Dan Stevens. So it's really hard to talk about Monkey Man, I'm not going to lie. I've mentioned the action. I spoke a little bit about story. I can't really dive into the story and what I want to talk about the drama, but something I want to bring up with action films we don't get a lot of is character development and the idea of maybe not the hero's journey, but with this film is very much I don't know the religious backgrounds per se, but the concept of Monkey Man is almost like a deity, like a story within the Indian culture in this, whether that's fictional for this film, I don't know. Whether that's a real life religious figure, I need to do a bit of research. But it was really interesting to see those parallels be brought forward, and then inside of that, it sort of brings it in together into this, and why the character works and the meaning of that character to Dev Patel in this. So it's a really interesting approach to it. I mentioned some of the backgrounds of India with the political side of things, with the corruption and whatnot. And for me, I've said this many times, I like seeing politics in films such as that. It does enhance it a little bit for me, and I like that this one is diving into that, especially with the religious side of things too. I'm trying to keep really tight on this, and I'm curious about just talking for the sake of talking, but I cannot recommend this film enough. And I can't just sit there and tweet and say, go watch the film. I mean, sure, I can say that, but for this review, I think this is a film people will talk about for years to come. It will end up on Netflix eventually. There's nothing wrong with that. And it'll be number 1 on Netflix's top 10. And then you'll see the usual Facebook statuses of people sharing scenes or clips, and it will become a film that people see. It will have staying power, and I think the first step of that is distribution. So a massive, massive credit to Jordan Peele for bailing this film out from the Netflix model. I'm not saying all films that go straight to streaming are crap, but we're clearly in a time point where it is best to put it on at the box office. People will go if they're aware of the film, if they're hearing about the film, if there's good word of mouth. Kong's had very good opening weekend numbers, which has caught me off guard. So it's still something people want to go to. And there is an audience for this. The problem is really the marketing, and I don't know at what point the takeover happened of Jordan Peele and the production side of things. Have they lost out on a marketing campaign due to this? I do not know. But I can only recommend watching this film when it comes out of the cinema, if you can get to it at the cinema. I don't know how often it's going to get played. It's rated 18 here, so this isn't like a softcore action type film that we've seen in the past. This is in that sort of latter, we're seeing people's noses get bitten off in the film. It's very gruesome, very entertaining, but it's very elegantly done. And as I mentioned, you sort of start and end the film with Dev Patel. It's his film, it's his story. It's remarkable to this directorial debut. And I don't really talk about award stuff this early in the year, but if BAFTA can do the directorial debut nomination, it has to be Dev Patel straight away. I don't know if that qualifies because he's been in films as an actor. I don't know how it works for them, but I just couldn't believe this is his first film he's directed. Whether he's done TV on the side, I don't know. I know he's worked in the industry for a very long time, going back to Skins. Obviously British people know about that. He's worked with some massive directors in the past as well, so he's learned from some of the best. And I just think it leaves me very excited at what his potential could be as a film director, and I'm excited to see what he does choose to do next after watching this. So that's my review, sort of review. I hope it makes sense. I hope I'm not just rambling and this is dreadful, but it is up on the channel. Other videos, there will be more reviews coming out. There'll be a live stream at some point this week as we go through all we watched in March. There's a lot of things happening in the background for videos in the next couple of months. When we can share more details, we will. But in the meantime, you're best off getting us on social medias to find out about new releases. Linktree.com, it's got our links on there. That's when we put up our videos, links, and what we're up to and all that sort of stuff. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.